There's a point where people start to question what's really controlling their outcomes. They're working hard, they're executing, they're doing everything that should logically move things forward. And yet, the results don't fully match the effort. Things feel delayed, inconsistent, almost like something unseen is shaping the outcome. And most people either ignore that or they explain it away. I'm Justin Kaiser, CEO of Empire Franchising, and I've spent the last 25 years building, scaling, and investing in businesses, including taking my own franchise brand from scratch to over 100 franchise territories before an acquisition at the end of 2024. And what I've come to understand, both in business and personally, is that results are not just created by action. They're created by the combination of action and internal expectation. Because whether people realize it or not, they're constantly projecting a version of reality through what they believe is possible, what they expect to happen, and what feels normal for them to experience. And over time, that projection starts to shape outcomes, not in some abstract way, but in a very practical way, through decisions, through timing, through what they notice and what they ignore. Napoleon Hill said, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." Now, most people hear this as motivation, but it's actually instruction, because the word believe is doing all of the work. Belief determines what you act on, what you hesitate on, what you follow through on, and what you abandon halfway through. And those patterns are what create results. Now, Neville Goddard took it one step further, saying, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And again, this gets interpreted as visualization or imagination. But what it really means is aligning your internal state with the outcome before it shows up. Because when something feels real to you internally, you stop treating it like a possibility and start treating it like a direction. And that changes how you move. It changes how quickly you decide. It changes what you tolerate. It changes what you pursue and what you ignore. Those shifts, subtle as they are, compound over time. Now, here's where most people misunderstand manifestation. They think it's about thinking positively, repeating affirmations, visualizing outcomes. But if that's not backed by internal consistency, it doesn't hold. Because your mind isn't responding to words, it's responding to patterns, to repeated signals, to what you consistently reinforce through behavior. And if your actions don't match what you say you believe, your baseline doesn't change. And if your baseline doesn't change, your results won't either, because everything filters through that. Now, think about this in practical terms. Two people can look at the same opportunity. One sees it as viable, the other sees risk. One moves quickly, the other hesitates. One follows through, the other pulls back. Same situation, different internal interpretation. And that interpretation shapes the outcome, not because of luck, but because it determines what actions actually get taken and how consistently they're executed. Now, layer in repetition, because this is where reality starts to feel fixed. Whatever you repeatedly experience becomes what you expect, and whatever you expect becomes what you unconsciously create through your decisions, your focus, your reactions, and over time, that loop becomes your reality. And breaking that loop doesn't come from forcing new outcomes. It comes from changing the expectation that's driving it. James Allen said, all that you accomplish and all that you fail to accomplish is a direct result of your own thoughts. Now, while that sounds extreme, what he's really pointing to is that cause and effect is the relationship between thinking patterns and behavior. Because thoughts don't just sit there, they direct attention, they influence emotion, they shape action, and action is what produces results. Now, here's the part that matters the most. You don't change this by trying to control every thought. That doesn't work. You change it by creating new patterns, small, consistent actions that align with the version of reality that you're stepping into. Because every time you follow through, every time you act in alignment, you're sending a signal. This is normal now. This is who I am now. And over time, those signals build until your internal state catches up. And once that happens, things that used to feel uncertain start to feel expected. Decisions get faster, Hesitation decreases, and opportunities that you might have missed before become obvious. Not because they weren't there, but because your perception has changed. Now, bring this back to business and investing, because this isn't separate from execution. It's driving it. How you interpret risk, how you evaluate opportunities, how long you wait before acting, all of it is shaped by your internal baseline. And if that baseline is built on doubt, hesitation, or past limitations, it will show up in your results, even if the opportunity itself is strong. But when that baseline shifts, when you start operating from a place of expectation instead of uncertainty, your actions align differently. And that's where results begin to change. Not because something external suddenly shifted, but because your internal filter did. And that changes everything. So if you're looking at your current results and they're not where you want them to be, don't just look at your strategy. Don't just look at execution. Look at expectation. Look at what feels normal for you. Look at what you actually believe will happen, because that's what you're operating from. And until that shifts, everything else will continue to reflect it. Once it does, once your internal state aligns with the outcomes that you're pursuing, action becomes cleaner. Decisions become faster. Results start to follow. Not in a forced way, but in a way that feels consistent. And that's when manifestation stops being an idea and starts becoming something that you experience in real time.